Now, Justin Jefferson, should he go number one in every PPR draft?
It's good that Davis caught up to 2023. Yes,
he admitted he was a little late to the party.
Yeah, a little late. He should go number one overall, absolutely. You know, you see what he's done through the first 3 years of his career, the offense that he's in. Everything that we heard about Kevin O'Connell coming to the Vikings last year and making this his Cooper Cup, because he was part of that offensive staff with the Rams, has come to fruition. The targets were there. We knew the production was there. It just got exemplified and exaggerated and was perfect for what you're looking for number one wide receiver. The slight drawback, which I know Heath has sort of talked about this offseason, the addition of Jordan Addison, the rookie wide receiver that they selected in the first round, plus a full season of TJ Hawkinson. Can those two guys detract from Jefferson enough to maybe say, okay, should Chase be number one? Should McCaffrey be number one? For me, I'm not concerned at all. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Kirk Cousins, flaws, no flaws, however you view him, will still lean on Justin Jefferson enough, and he's got everything you look for. Safety, upside, looking for a big deal. You got to love Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with Jefferson and Chase, but I think these are the two best wide receivers probably for the next 10 years in the NFL. The amazing thing is Jefferson scored 20 more fantasy points than any other wide receiver last year, and he was probably unlucky. Just 8 touchdowns on 184 targets. The year before, 10 on 167. I think he'll be better this year than he was last year in terms of on a per-target basis, even if those targets go down just a little bit.
So we saw the top 5 wide receivers. They're probably all going to go in the first round of a PPR draft, right?
So right now, the average draft position on CBS Sports, which factors in all formats, so non-PPR factored in there as well. Cooper Kupp is actually going in round 2. Same with Stephon Diggs. But I think most drafts that we've seen and taken part of, all 5 of those guys go in the first round.
How about a round 2 wide receiver, you know, the CeeDee Lambs of the world, the Devontae Adams, who's now going to fall to round 2, most likely in most drafts because of the quarterback situation there. How about a round 2 wide receiver with the most upside?
I'll go with Devontae Adams. And the great thing about it is when you ask the most upside, I don't have to worry about Jimmy Garoppolo's foot because we're just talking about how good he could be. And we saw last year Devontae Adams is quarterback proof. Yes, Jimmy Garoppolo has a lot of problems with the deep ball, but we've also seen Devontae Adams on a team that didn't throw the ball deep 3 years ago with the Green Bay Packers, had one of the best years of his career. If everything goes right, he still has the potential to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. There's just a lot of things that could go wrong. That's why he's falling to round 2.
Yeah, I'm scared of all those things that could go wrong. You know, 30 years old, wide receivers at that age, they start to go in the wrong direction. You mentioned the quarterback. He makes me the most nervous. The guy that I'm the most excited about, and I have ranked ahead of Devontae Adams, I had all offseason, but I just recently moved ahead of CeeDee Lamb to number 6 for me, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love the setup for him. 6 games without Jamison Williams, really without a significant competitor for targets on that team. Now, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 new additions that we didn't see last year, some of the other retread wide receivers that they have. But this guy trending in the right direction, Chris. I love third-year wide receivers when they have this type of profile. Very good rookie season, better second season, trending toward that breakout campaign. And all you're hearing is just fantastic things about what he's done in training camp so far. So if the touchdowns tick up, remember last year, Jamal Williams led the NFL in rushing touchdowns with 17. A lot of that was some unlucky production from Jared Goff in the passing game. A lot of wide receivers falling down at the 1-yard line, leading to those Jamal Williams scores. I think we're going to see Jared Goff have a better season. I think we're going to see Amon-Ra St. Brown take that next step. And I love the setup with Ben Johnson still there calling plays. So he's got all the makings that you look for, again, for a breakout wide receiver going into year 3.
Let's go down to Jacksonville now. Pete Prisco thinks Trevor Lawrence is going to be the MVP. That would mean a bunch of touchdown passes,
been in
a bunch of
Jacksonville,
yards. Yes, everybody has. Evan Washburn was there yesterday. You got Calvin Ridley. Everybody's saying he's been opening eyes at camp. But you also have Christian Kirk, who had a career year last year in his first year with the Jags. How do you separate these two, Heath?
I don't separate them much. I have 114, 115. They are back-to-back in my rankings, but I will just slightly favor Christian Kirk because of the involvement that he had with Trevor Lawrence. I do value that rapport, and I do have still just a little bit of concerns. Listen, the training camp clips of Calvin Ridley running routes faster than everyone else are fantastic, and they've caused me to move Ridley up just a little bit. But we saw it with Michael Thomas. He began last year at 100%, made it about 4 games and didn't play again. We haven't seen Calvin Ridley for the last 2 seasons at full speed, and I need to see that before I'm going to move him back up into the top 12.
I love the value for Christian Kirk, and I'm glad that Heath is bullish on him because I hope he plays that level. He was awesome last year, and I hope he will continue to be. But this is now the alpha of this receiving core. And the hope would be is that what we see in Miami when you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Philadelphia when you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Cincinnati when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, that this is the next great wide receiver duo. So Trevor Lawrence is going to have a huge season. We know the mayor has already said that. So I think you just have to follow suit, that this is going to be a big year for Trevor Lawrence, that he takes that next step, and that all these guys follow suit. Not just Ridley and Kirk, but still Evan Ingram produces, Zay Jones continues to produce. But these are the two guys that are going to get the majority of targets, and they're both going to be fantasy potential superstars. But Ridley's already done it. I think just Kirk gets a little bit of a bump down now because of Ridley's presence.
Kirk was kind of a breakout last season with the Jaguars, first season over 1,000 yards receiving. Heath, give us a breakout player this year at that position.
It's one of the second-year wide receivers. I think we all agree on that. We love that, the top 5 or 6 of those guys. I will go with Christian Watson. He averaged 2.26 yards per route run last year. Only 5 wide receivers since 2013 who had better than that mark. It's Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Odell Beckham.
Wow.
So he is everything set up. He just has to stay healthy, and Jordan Love has to be not terrible. Listen, he doesn't have to be peak Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers wasn't peak Aaron Rodgers last year, and Watson was still phenomenal down the stretch. He could be a top 12 wide receiver this year.
Whenever we get these emails from our producers, and Jack Capitolo emailed last night, it's who answers first gets the best choice. So I got the best choice of Garrett Wilson. Like he said, these second-year wide receivers, Chris Olave, Christian Watson, and Wilson, these 3 guys have the chance to be special in year 2. And it's a fun stat, but it's a little bit of a stat that you shouldn't necessarily lean on. But we saw what Wilson was able to do with the non-Zach Wilson quarterbacks, and he averaged 17.6 PPR points per game. Why is that not a stat you want to lean on? Because, well, they allowed all these other quarterbacks to throw as opposed to allowing Zach Wilson to throw. What are they going to allow Aaron Rodgers to do? They're going to allow him to throw a little bit. So as long as this ankle injury doesn't linger and he's fine come week 1, this is a guy that has a chance to be a potential top 5 fantasy wide receiver if he builds off what he did last year. We know what Davante Adams meant to Aaron Rodgers. This is now the Davante Adams, the lead singer of a group that has a very substantial background singing group. You know, Alan Lazard and Mecole Hardman and all these other guys, Corey Davis. But this is going to be the guy that leads that bunch, and Garrett Wilson's got superstar potential written all over him. He's going to really, really love playing with Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, so those are second-year players that you guys are looking at breaking out. How about the rookie wide receivers? Garrett Wilson was the rookie of the year last year. Is Jordan Addison the top rookie wide receiver, Heath?
He's the top rookie wide receiver. Let's not put him in the Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, probably even the Garrett Wilson conversation quite yet. But I do think when you're comparing him and JSN, and I like both these guys, especially for the long term, the big difference is Addison going to a team that's probably going to throw 100 more passes than the Seattle Seahawks. Also, Addison, yes, he has to compete with Justin Jefferson for targets. JSN has to compete with both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So it's just a situation thing, but I like both of these guys as number 3 wide receivers, and I wouldn't be surprised in the second half of the season if they're even better than that.
The thing, I agree with Heath that Jordan Addison should be number 1, but I do think that we could see a scenario where Zay Flowers is the number 1 wide receiver in Baltimore, and how much they're going to throw the ball more. He may jump over Addison, but I think the thing to look at with, I hope not Addison, because it would probably be a Justin Jefferson injury, but if you see one of the other 2 guys in Seattle get hurt, then Jackson Smith-Njigba will be the best rookie wide receiver. And if one of the 2 guys in Los Angeles for the Chargers gets hurt, Quentin Johnston could be the number 1 receiver there, just because, again, those guys are 1 player away from getting a huge amount of targets and some pretty good offenses. So you draft Addison first, but these are all going to be guys you want on your fantasy team. Those 4 rookie wide receivers, and there are a bunch of others, but those 4 guys are in such great spots. The draft capital is there from their NFL draft, and the potential is huge. So any injury could really open the door for one of those guys, but Jordan Addison, just again, in his offense, should be the best of the bunch.
We're highlighting the wide receiver position with our fantasy guys today. We're all going to be looking for sleepers in that back half of the draft. Give us one to look for.
I'll go with Nico Collins. I think it's really underestimated how big a difference C.J. Stroud's going to make in that offense. Playing with Davis Mills last year, Collins saw the highest percentage of off-target throws down the field. Stroud has been talked about in fantasy circles as maybe not being that great of an option because he doesn't run enough, and we love those guys that run. But you look at what he did as a passer, completed 69% of his passes, averaged 9.8 yards per attempt. He could come into this league and be an above-average passer as soon as his rookie year. And Nico Collins looks like the number 1 wide receiver in that offense.
He's going to be the guy making the most big plays down the field, and that's what's fun about that team. I took the free space again. I took the guy that's attached to Patrick Mahomes right now, and that's Sky Moore. And you just look at the setup for him right now. I don't care that Kadarius Toney's coming back for week 1. What you're hearing out of Kansas City is Moore will be on the field when they're in 2 receiver sets. And so that was the big question mark. Okay, we expect Marquez Valdez-Scantling, as boring as he is, to stay on the field. Who was going to be on the field with him when it's just 1 other wide receiver? Was it going to be Rashee Rice, who got hurt in practice today? Hopefully he's okay. Justin Ross, who's been sort of a highlight machine week in, week out. I think this is big for Sky Moore because when he kicks inside and now plays the slot role, which is where Juju Smith-Schuster was, while Smith-Schuster faltered last year, Sky Moore will get those 100-plus targets, and that's big anytime, again, you're getting them from Patrick Mahomes. And if you watch the quarterback documentary, the thing that Mahomes said on a couple times where they were sort of retooling their offense on the fly, you saw a couple interceptions there. They were going to Sky Moore. I don't think Moore knew what he was doing then. He should know what he's doing now. And this guy's got so much potential. So his only touchdown last year came in the Super Bowl. He's going to score a bunch of them this year. Big year coming for Sky Moore in year 2.